Hi, I'm Vaughn Palmer here on a balmy day in the provincial capital in the Rose Garden beside the legislature with my colleague Rob Shaw to talk about the week in BC politics. And I'm going to turn it over to Inspector Shaw, who was on the ICBC case all week. Tell us about it.
Yeah, who would have thought that would be the big story of the week, but started with a fight between ICBC and the province's regulator, the BC Utilities Commission, over whether ICBC should have to make public a worst-case scenario rate forecast for the next 5 years. ICBC lost that fight, and lo and behold, this week they quietly released some numbers that show a 42% compounded basic rate hike is possible if they can't drive down claims costs and a whole bunch of other factors. Vaughn, they tried to hide this a little bit by offering a smoke show this week on booting luxury car owners out of the insurance program in BC, so you can't buy insurance for a luxury car to try and save some money there. A drop in the bucket to what the overall financial problems are. And I mean, we haven't yet to hear really how they're going to chart their course out of this mess.
Yeah, ICBC said it was worried that the 42% rate increase would be taken out of context. I think they were more worried that it would be put into context with the provincial election that's coming next year. The other thing about the luxury car thing, which, you know, it's fascinating to discover there are 3,000 Aston Martins in British Columbia or whatever they are, not driven by James Bond, but the thing about that is there's a whole bunch of questions about how this ban on the tax on the rates on luxury cars is going to work. None of them were answered, which tells you that ICBC was scrambling to get that announcement out the door to provide themselves with some cover for the 42% rate increase.
Yeah, ICBC is stuck right now between a politically motivated rate cap of 4.9% by a government that doesn't want rate hikes to go up before the election. They have rising claims costs, and they don't have enough money in the reserves to keep dumping it back onto basic rates to keep it down. And until the government addresses those key issues, there's going to be problems with rates.
If the government hadn't been raiding almost, $2.5 billion from ICBC over the years, if the government hadn't done that, ICBC could be handing out rate reductions and rebates to its customers instead of right now trying to figure out how they're going to manage the rate cap. So this has been a bad week for the Liberals on that one. Also, I thought Opposition Leader John Horgan had a pretty good day when he met with us to... it was kind of funny, actually. We were invited to talk about the fall session of the legislature, and of course there wasn't one. So Horgan made very good political hay out of that, listing all the issues that the NDP would have raised if the Liberals had seen fit to call the House. And then on Thursday, he made a big announcement, Rob, that may prove to be a bit divisive for his party.
Yeah, banning the trophy hunt for grizzly bears in the province if he wins the election. As was pointed out, it's not a total ban on hunting grizzly bears. If you're going to hunt them for meat or you're a First Nations group that hunts them, you may still be able to do that under the NDP. But Vaughn, you remember when this came up in the 90s under an NDP government, it was very divisive and caused a whole bunch of problems.
Yeah, right before the New Democrats, their last year in office, they announced a moratorium, 3-year moratorium on grizzly bear hunting. The day they announced it, they had a resignation at the cabinet level. Harry Lally, who was then the transportation minister of BC, resigned in protest. Other New Democrats said this was going to be divisive in rural ridings. Look, most British Columbians support the ban, but it's a contentious issue in some rural parts of British Columbia. And politically, this is relevant, Rob, because Harry Lally is trying to run for the NDP again and make a comeback. By an amazing coincidence, the party has not yet set a nomination meeting for Harry, which has some speculation out there that he's the last guy they want running for them.
And politically, it's also important because it looks like what the NDP are worried about here is leading votes to the BC Greens, who've had a ban on trophy hunting as a proposal for quite a while. So more to shore up maybe their support in urban centres, the Lower Mainland, southern Vancouver Island, is the point of this announcement.
And we're almost out of time here. We haven't mentioned that the government rolled out $500 million worth of housing projects, 68 projects, 2,900 units. So that was what was supposed to dominate the news cycle this week. But with an election coming, the government doesn't always get its own way on what turns out to be the big news of the week. We'll give the award for that to ICBC, and I think it's probably a pretty good guess the Liberals aren't very happy with ICBC this week. Talk to you next week.